Scott, we haven't talked about it yet, so we'll start with the big conversation of the week. Phillies didn't retaliate. Bryce Harper was hitting the elbow. Do you think they handled it the right way?
I'm sorry, you broke up there. I think you were talking about retaliation.
Yes. Did the Phillies handle that the right way by not throwing at any Braves hitters?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a matter of perspective. Look, I think, I know Ricky will agree with this. Those of us who are sort of old enough to remember kind of a different time in the game would say, yeah, I mean, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I think somebody would have hit the dirt, right, for the Braves, Intentional, not intentional. I think the message would be, hey, look, you can't hit our guys. That said, it was clearly not intentional. Bryce did get hit twice over the weekend in Sacramento, but they were twice in the same game, and it was both unintentional, and I think it more a product of A's pitchers having no idea where they were throwing the ball. So I understand where the Phillies are coming from, that they didn't see intent there. They were playing close games with the Braves the rest of the week, and, really didn't feel like there was a time where it was appropriate to do that. So I will say this. There are 2 more series left against Atlanta, 2 more opportunities to, send a message if that's what you're into. I just don't know. It's a longer conversation, but I also don't know that today's players are as into policing the game in that way as they were 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Okay, well, looking at this past series, I mean, you look at the Phillies. I thought offensively, runners in scoring position was a bit of a problem again. But the one thing that stood out to me was Zach Wheeler's performance last night. What did you take from that?
Not much. We've talked about this before. When Zach pitches, you almost expect, 6-7 innings, 2-3 runs or less. You expect a quality start each time, and you expect usually more than that. And when he gives it to you, you sort of, I don't want to say you just sort of take it for granted, but, when he has a little bit of a clunker like he did last night, I did think it was interesting him talking after the game a little bit about, these are hitters that know him very well. They've faced him a lot over the years on the Braves. And, I think Aaron Nola went through this a few years ago with the Braves, with the Mets, right? Like teams that you see all the time. And do you have to vary your pattern a little bit more against those teams? I don't think that they're at that point with Zach Wheeler yet, although, his 2 clunkers this year have both been against the Braves. I just think, he has one every couple of months. And it just sort of reaffirms that he's human after all. Because otherwise he's, a guy who gives you, like I said, 6-7 strong innings every single time out. You almost don't think twice about it until he gives you a start like last night where he doesn't do that.
Yeah, the bullpen is a little bit more of a concern than Zach Wheeler, and that's understating it. But Matt Stum lately has been in a rough patch. What do you make of his recent struggles?
Yeah, I would agree that if there's an area of concern anywhere, it's the bullpen, and they'll address it, at some point here before the trade deadline, which is still 2 months away. I would be stunned if after July 31st they don't have a few new faces out there, at least one. Look, Strom's one of the 3 guys they're really counting on. It's Stum, Romano, and Kerkering, and those are really the 3 high-leverage guys, and they're going to lean on them a little bit here in the short term because they're sort of down one of their leverage arms with Alvarado being suspended. So, I think, look, they've all gone through a stretch where they've struggled a little bit. Romano's was early in the season. Kerkering was a little bit after him. Stum maybe is going through it a little bit now. It's going to happen. But I think that those 3 guys are the most consistent guys they have out there, and, they're going to be guys that, all year long are going to, I think what you worry about is you don't want to overuse those guys because you're going to need them toward the end. And what you worry about then are the guys below them, like the Joe Rosses and the Carlos Hernandezes and the Tanner Bankses. Like, are they going to give you what you need so that you're not running Kerkering, Stum, and Romano into the ground? So I think that's where their depth out there in the bullpen is going to be tested.
Looking forward to tonight. Obviously, Taiwan Walker going for the Phils tonight. What are your expectations for Taiwan? Not only just tonight, But as we move forward, because it looks like the Phillies are really going to be loaded with starting pitching at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you got to knock on wood, right, Ricky? Because just when you think that you're loaded with starting pitching, you all of a sudden you might need some. So, but yeah, certainly that is an area of depth and strength for them. When you think about the 5 in the rotation right now, Aaron Nola, who threw a bullpen yesterday, is going to throw another one Sunday, and could go out on a rehab assignment maybe by the middle or end of next week. So, not long before he rejoins the rotation. And when he does, assuming everyone else is healthy, Taiwan Walker goes back to the bullpen where he's going to have a big role. I mean, they want to see if he can help those leverage guys out there at the back of the bullpen. So, I think the expectations for him have sort of shifted a little bit, right? I mean, this was a guy that, we said going into spring training, like, is he going to even be on the team when spring training ends? Are they going to trade him? Is he going to be a guy who they just have to release because he doesn't pitch well? He's pitched very well in both roles, starting and relieving. So, I think he's a guy now who they're going to count on here, at least a little bit in the short term. Whether it's as the fill-in for Aaron Nola until Nola's ready, or as a leverage guy in the bullpen when Nola gets back.
Now, not to go back to the retaliation thing because that's behind us, but Bryce Harper still has not played, took some infield today. Right. Any bit of an update from you, Scott, on how he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, straight from the horse's mouth, right? He said he's super sore and still has some swelling in there. He's not sure when he's going to play, if it'll be tomorrow or Sunday, or if it gets into next week when the team goes to Toronto. They have the off day Monday. So if he doesn't play the next 2 games, you could buy him another day. At this point, they don't think it's an IL thing. Now, they could backdate the IL stint to Wednesday. And if they did that, if they put him on the IL and backdated it to Wednesday, he'd be available to play, I believe, Friday. So as long as they think that he'll be ready before Friday, next Friday, a week from today, they wouldn't put him on the IL. I think that's kind of where they're at right now. It's just like, when can he play? When will he be available to them? And at this point, he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I don't think he thinks it's going to be another whole week.
I got to ask you, watching yesterday's game, and Raphael Maran comes up big with a 2-run homer, 3 RBIs on the game. How big of a game is that for him and just his psyche?
I think it's really big. I wrote about that after the first game yesterday. Here's a guy who plays roughly once a week, sometimes even less than that. And he has a big game yesterday between the home run, the hit by pitch, but then the 2 caught stealings, right, including the one in the 9th inning. I think it's a huge game for him. I think it's big for his confidence. I don't care what you say, like, about trying to stay true to your process and trying to do the work when you don't play. When you don't play, and then when you do and you don't get results, I think it kind of wears on you mentally. He gets up there. He sees the numbers. He sees that he's hitting like about 100 or whatever it was going into the game yesterday. And that can't sit well, especially when you know that if you don't do anything in that particular game, it's going to be a week before you play again. So I think it was a really big game for him yesterday. I think it was good to see. And as we move forward here into the meat of the season, the heart of the season, and they try to figure out, can we sell JT Realmuto a little bit more here or there? I think that they're going to be a lot more comfortable doing that if they get games like that out of Raphael Maran.
All right, last thing for you here, Scott, and this is only because we've had a lot of people asking the question with our old pal Rhys Hoskins back in town. Will the Phillies trade for Rhys Hoskins at the deadline or ahead of that to add as a right-handed bat?
I was sort of kicking that around a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking, God, how could they make that work, right? Because he's a right-handed bat. He does a lot of things at the plate that they need. And I think what you'd have to do, right, is you'd probably have to either move Bryce Harper back to the outfield for the rest of the season, which he told me in spring training he would do if it was a short-term thing. Or you'd have to put Kyle Schwarber in left field. Somehow you'd have to open up either first base or DH. So positionally, not the greatest fit in the world, right? Positionally to try to bring him back. But, I'm sure as we get closer to the deadline, if the Brewers are still kind of on the outside of the playoff picture and Reese is going to be a free agent after the season. I'm sure his name will be mentioned as somebody who could move at the deadline. And for his sake, I hope if he does move, I hope it's somewhere where he gets a chance to play in the postseason again. He did it in 23 and then 22 after all those years with the Phillies of missing, and got a chance to do it in 22 and had some huge moments. Obviously, the bat spike is something none of us will ever forget. And then it was taken away from him in 23 because of the injury. So whether it's here or somewhere else, and I think here is still quite a long shot, it would be a lot of fun to see him in the playoffs again.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a lot of fun to talk to you, Scott. We appreciate the time. We'll let you get all prepared for tonight's matchup between the Phils and the Brewers, and we'll be talking to you down the road.
Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching, listening in. I want you to like, subscribe, do what you have to do to kind of stay on focus with us. Also, we also have plenty of other content that goes on here on YouTube. So go to that, like that, subscribe to that. And also you can catch us on the afternoon show, 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, 97.5 The Fanatic, 97.5thefanatic.com, and NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Hey everybody, it's Bill Colarulo. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so you can engage during the show, and you're not going to want to miss all the content that we post. It's not only the live videos, it's videos after the fact. It's our shorts. It's all the content you want as a Philadelphia sports fan. Looking forward to connecting.